a quarter of all opioid overdoses in the US are construction workers. And then we also see staggering suicide rates for construction workers as well. So we know there's an epidemic.
You're listening to Titans of the Trades. I'm your host, Ryan Englin, author of Hire Better People Faster and creator of the CoreFit hiring system, a proven process to help growing companies attract and retain only the best. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the perception of the trades and elevate it to new heights. After growing up in a blue-collar family, my passion for making the trades cool again runs deep. If you're a titan in the industry and want to be on my show, stick around until the end and I'll reveal how you can be my next guest. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Ryan Englin, and on today's show, I want to introduce Josh Vitale. He is the founder of Project Built. And for anyone that's followed me for any period of time, you know how much I value the employee experience, how much I think it's important that we walk in the shoes of the people that make construction happen all over the world every single day, and to really understand what it's like to be them and to deal with the trials and the pressures that they deal with every single day. And Josh is a great guest to give us some insight into how that works. He's going to share some stats about mental health and what it means in the construction industry and what we're dealing with and some of the things, some of the initiatives that he's working on to help us solve this problem. So I want to welcome to today's show, Josh Vitale, the founder of Project Built. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here.
You know, you reached out and said, hey, I've got something to share on your podcast. And as I started to learn a little bit more about you, I was thinking the same thing. You are absolutely right. The work that you do in the trades is so near and dear to my heart. And it's one of those things that we all know is an issue, but for whatever reason, we don't like to talk about it a whole lot. That is not the case with you. So would you take 60 seconds, tell our listeners who you are, what you're up to, and why you got into this?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So, I'm Josh Vitale. I am the founder and CEO of Project Built, and we're a 501c3 that is, trying to solve the human problems that we're seeing in the construction industry. One of our main areas of focus is reconnecting families and, starting to think about holistic wellness in a way that, connects the dots, right? Like what we're seeing as far as suicidality in the construction trades and, opioid addiction, as well as overdose and the staggering rates of deaths of despair that we see in the construction industry. We're looking to do that. And so that's why we put together the nonprofit.
Got it. Yeah. We were talking for a second before this, and I'm sure you've got some crazy stats about mental health, suicide rate in the trades, those kinds of things. And I'd love for you to share that just to really paint a picture for everybody of what's going on here. But you're putting together an army of people who are out here to really help solve this problem. And that's why we're talking today, to help recruit for that army that's going to help you with this. Share a little bit about what's going on in the industry and what you're seeing out there being boots on the ground.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing across the trades and across the country, and it's pretty ubiquitous, is that we have, I call it the canary in the coal mine, and that's the suicide rate and the rate of overdose. So last year, more than 16,000 people died of overdoses in the United States. A quarter of all opioid overdoses in the US are construction workers. And then we also see staggering suicide rates for construction workers as well. So we know there's an epidemic. There's a group of people out there that are pushing to try to make changes, and we're trying to figure out exactly what the best ways to do that are.
So what's going on? Why is it such a big issue in the trades? Like what do you see? I hear this question a lot, like, why is the suicide rate so high in the trades? And usually you get kind of a, we don't really know answer, but you're seeing it. Tell what's going on.
Obviously it's a nuanced issue, but if I were to give people just a quick snapshot of what's going on, where we see suicide happen for folks is a lack of connection and then a loss of hope. And in that moment, the human mind does this thing where it just says that it's going to be harder to go on living. So the lack of connection piece is one that I think is most important to, or one that we can work on, and that is making sure that people stay connected with their families. We have a lot of travelers that are working a ton of hours, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and they're not able to connect with their families. We're keeping them away from home for 6 months, 12 months at a time. So I think that really leads to what we're seeing.
Yeah, that we talk a lot about in the work that we do, this connection piece. People don't leave jobs, they leave people.
Right.
And we are the most connected we've ever been in the history of the world. We're also the loneliest we've ever been because our connections aren't meaningful.
Right.
I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook or whatever platform the kids are on these days, right? Like that's how we look at connections now. And one of the things that Gallup has found that one of the most effective indicators of someone who's engaged at work is, do they have a best friend or not?
Mm.
And in the trades, I see this, that we are so focused on build faster, build cheaper, more profitable, build faster. Like it's a machine that we forget to say, hey, wait a minute. These guys want to like the people they work with. I know that, we're men and we don't talk about these things because we're all rough and tough, but you know what? I still want friendships. I still want to be able to come to work and be able to tell the guys what we did over the weekend or talk about the game or whatever that is. And we don't create those opportunities of belonging and connection in the workplace. And to your point, when it's the family that you're losing connection with, and then you've got no workplace connection, like it just compounds. Is that what you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I led a retreat up in northern Wisconsin for a mid-level mechanical contractor, and they were struggling, right? Everybody was siloed. No one was communicating. It's electrical versus pipe guys, and the company was really struggling. And when we started to look at what was the root cause of what was going on, a lot of those guys, we tried to lead with vulnerability and open up to them on our struggles and what's been hard for us being in construction. And what came out of that was that these guys really are suffering, and they're suffering because they've got a couple of divorces and their kids aren't talking to them, and that's where their stressors are. And they feel like all of this work that they've done, that they thought they were sacrificing for their family for the last 20 to 30 years, isn't appreciated, and their kids hate them, and their wife or their ex-wife resents them for being away for so long. So sacrificing your whole life for people that you think you're doing something good for, and then having that be received as you're doing the wrong thing, is really heartbreaking for most men, I think.
Yeah, we could talk about all of the things that I've learned just going through church and the stuff that I've learned with my wife and the things that we talk about, and just that connection at home and with a spouse or a partner, and the way that they treat us men is the way we think about ourselves in the workplace and everything else. It's a lot to carry. And then I think you even said earlier, you've got these guys that are working crazy hours. They're working overtime. They're not giving their body a chance to rest. They're not able to spend time with the kids because they're pushing so hard that at the end of it all, there's no appreciation for it.
Right.
Just like you're saying. So what are you up to over at Project Built? What is going on over there? And what are you guys seeing when you're out there mobilizing all of these people to help solve this problem?
Well, one, I see that there are a lot of people that are spending, lots of time and energy trying to solve this problem. And, one of the ways that we've discovered that we think is going to be a huge help is to bring that family in. And so in 2026, we're inviting 10 families that have experienced, trauma, leading up to this, out to a retreat in Colorado. We're going to be up by Aspen. We're going to pay all expenses paid, have 10 of these families come out and actually take them through a 5-day healing experience, so where we can start to heal the family. And we've looked at kind of what the military does with their families and how important they make those. And we can look at construction kind of as and compare it to what they do in the military because of the similar demographics of the military family versus construction. And so we're going to bring people out and help them heal as a family, and then through that follow them after the retreat and help them to get the support that they need. I know for us, a lot of what we were able to do and heal as a family ourselves was through creating a practice, and like you were talking about, having things in place, rituals that you do weekly and nightly that really help you to build that core behavior around your family that becomes healthy and things that you turn to.
Well, we've got a lot of leaders, construction contracting leaders that are listening to this show right now. And I have no idea where their head's at. I'm sure there's some that are receptive and some that are like, hey, this all sounds good, but how do I do any of this? So you talk about bringing these families together and helping with healing. How how can leaders at these companies, when they know somebody's going through something or they start to see some of the warning signs that there might be issues, what are some ways that they can help their people heal? What are the ways that they can kind of go through this journey with them and be that support mechanism for them?
I think one of the best ways that we can do that as leaders is to model vulnerability, to talk about our own
Mm.
struggles, to stand up in front of the group and say, "Hey, I had to take 2 weeks off because my son was ill," and like really showing that that is okay. I think is the best way that we can do that, and that doesn't cost anything. You know,
Yeah.
Creating peer support networks is huge, right? Mentorship programs is going to be something that's transformational for any company that doesn't really cost you much. And you're going to see huge ROI on anything that you do that really helps to build that human capital.
Now, what if you've got if you're looking at your business right now and you're like, you know what? But we've got Jimmy. Jimmy's toxic. He's part of the problem. It's really hard for me to do these things and be vulnerable when Jimmy's around, but I can't let him go because he knows everybody. The contractors love him. He gets the work done. Like, how do we deal with that toxicity? And maybe before that, like, what's the impact of having a toxic boss like that out in the field?
Great question. The toxic boss. So we know now with mental health, right? That your boss, your direct manager, is just as impactful for your mental well-being as your spouse. So it's about 50-50. And so if you have a toxic boss and maybe things are going home at home are going fine, you might be able to weather that storm, right? And ride it out. But if things go bad at home and you've got a toxic boss, now you've got a mix that could lead to suicidality or ideation. So I think as company leadership, you have to find those toxic people and you have to either omit them, right? Get rid of them, or do some real work to try to heal what they're going through. Have frank conversations with them to say, look, you're just not helping us out. You don't fit the culture. And if you're modeling vulnerability and if you're having tough conversations because you're brave enough to get uncomfortable and sit down with those folks, you might find that they're struggling as well and you can get them to the help that they need so that they can heal.
Yeah. You told me that you grew up in the trades, like you are a lineman at trade have you experienced that? Like when you were out in the field, have you experienced working with a toxic boss or had leaders that didn't really connect with you and those kinds of things? And how did you use that to influence this, or uh, what were some of the things that you did to support yourself through that?
Boundary setting, I think, is probably the most important thing that I could say, and that didn't come easy for me. I'm codependent as all get out. I grew up with alcoholic parents, and so when it came to a toxic boss, that just felt normal to me. But as I grew in my
Mm.
own my own personal journey, I started to be able to set boundaries in a way that allow me to have a container. And if someone's saying something that's toxic to me, I don't have to take that on as the truth, right? I can insulate myself from that kind of behavior. But ultimately, we can't change other people and we can't make people different than they already are. That's something that they have to do for themselves. So, in the toxic situations that I've been in, it's about setting boundaries. If you can't get away from them, reaching out, using the channels that you need to use to get help, whether that's HR, whether that's going above their head to say, hey, this environment is something that I'm not comfortable with, or just confronting them. A lot of times just a little pushback to say, hey, the way that you're talking to me is totally unacceptable and I'm not going to stand for it. You'd be surprised, a lot of those toxic folks are pretty insecure. And so when they get some real pushback, they kind of back down.
Yeah. I know that in the work that we do with helping teams really fix some of their people problems, there's always that fear. If I confront that guy, he's going to quit. And if he quits, I'm going to be in a bigger bind. So I don't want to fire him, or I don't want him to quit because I don't have the confidence to be able to replace him. And if that's the case, I just would rather not touch it because I don't want to fan the flames because I don't know how they're going to react, how they're going to respond. Uh, and you'd mentioned that being vulnerable, and I think about one of the tips that we teach, or one of the tactics that we teach when you're struggling with a toxic leader or someone who's struggling to really bring the team together and create that connection. And it's just being vulnerable, using I statements like, I feel this way when you do this. And I feel when I see this happen, this is how it makes me feel. And the response is always, well, that's not really what's happening. Well, then why do I feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all about me. I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. And we can have those conversations about those toxic leaders, which it's so prevalent in the construction industry. They're everywhere. And to your point, I think it's just a matter of insecurity. They don't have the connections they need. It's more of a defense mechanism that they act this way. And I've seen some really turn it around. Like when you just confront them and you have those conversations, and if you can create that healthy work environment, and I know it's just a start, like there's so many other things are going, but if you can create that healthy work environment where your laborers and your craft workers and even your hourly employees can go to their boss and say, hey, I'm having a rough day. And they can be vulnerable without this fear of retribution or feeling put down or feeling like they don't have that connection. If they can trust that they can go to their supervisor who's not toxic and just say, hey, this happened over the weekend. My mind's not really in it today. I'm here because I want to support you, but it's going to be tough for me today. And I know that people are thinking, oh, our guys don't talk like that. You know what? If we gave them an environment to, they just might.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
Right. Yeah, we promote people into leadership positions because they're great at the work that they're doing, but we don't give them any training to be a leader. We don't teach them the
Yeah.
soft skills. We don't teach them active listening. Everyone understands what everyone else is going through. We're all living this human experience together and we're all connected, but we go back to this, defensive sort of posture because we're scared. We're scared to truly
Yeah.
connect with people. We're scared that if they see us being vulnerable, that they're not going to follow our leadership, when we don't need followers. We need people to walk beside us to get something done together.
That reminds me of when Brene Brown stood on stage and said, hey, I'm going to talk about vulnerability and shame. And she goes, I'm standing up here in front of 500 people. And how many of you want to see me fail? None of you.
Right.
You're all rooting for me. Even if I break down or trip or whatever, you're all rooting for me because I'm the one standing up being vulnerable. And she goes, and the same thing would happen to you, but most of you don't have the guts to get up on this stage because you're fearful of all the things that aren't real. And it's just that vulnerability and being able to connect with people is such great stuff. How do you balance this? So here's what I'm thinking. I got a project to get done. Right? I've got numbers to hit. I've got a schedule to hit. I got to be profitable. I've got to do all this. How do I balance that, the hard metrics, staying safe, those kinds of things, with the more emotional health, the softer metrics on a day-to-day basis? Like, how do we balance that?
I think you look at the ROI, right? We understand, what's missing right now in the physical safety piece is psychological safety. It's people having their head in the game. And so you have to realize as leadership, even if you're a project manager and you're totally budget and schedule oriented, that if you don't get that figured out, then you're not playing the long game, right? You're just going to be chasing your tail. You're going to be missing your schedule. You're going to be going over budget because your people aren't connected and they're not aligned with what you're not set a purpose for them. There's so many things about creating that container where people can thrive that actually leads to all of those other things being successful for you.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, it's counterintuitive, right? Like, if I invest in the people first,
Right.
they'll take care of making sure the project stays on schedule.
Right.
But for whatever reason, that just seems counterintuitive. It's like, no. And I mentioned to you, we take very much this employee first mindset. Like, what's it like to walk in their shoes for a minute? What's it like to come to work every single day and know that your boss is just going to put you down? What's it like to show up every day and just be told, hey, you're not moving fast enough, you're not good enough because we're behind on the schedule, even though I'm only one part of a giant machine. Like, what do those things feel like? Let's talk about that for a minute, because when we take a step back and we say, hey, if we invest in the people and they're happy and they're engaged and they're motivated, guess what they're going to do? They're going to take care of the project.
Right.
They're going to make sure that we hit our numbers and we hit our schedule and that we're safe and we do everything else. So I feel like, what'd you tell me? 500,000 people got together for this event. They were part of this event you did?
Oh yeah, so I'm the chair of Construction Suicide Prevention Week, which is a nonprofit, and you can find us at constructionsuicideprevention.com. But yeah, 500,000 registered participants last year, and those numbers are low. We make it free. So, the amount of people that actually participated are much higher than that. But that's the first full week in September. And it's a great entry point for companies to really get started in raising awareness. We have a lot of free resources, toolbox talks available. It's a perfect place to start if you're trying to dip your toe in the water and get to know what's going on with suicide in the construction industry and how you can get help and be helpful. But yeah, 750 companies last year. We're in all 50 states and 4 territories. It's a great way to really get your company started on the path towards what you're talking about, which is really communicating with your people and showing that you care.
Yeah. And I'm on the website right now, and it talks about Suicide Prevention Week being in September. And yeah, I think just bringing awareness to this, which is what you and I talked about, just getting the awareness out that this is such a thing is one of the first steps in being able to help solve this problem. Uh, a lot of people come to me and they say, Ryan, I can't find good people. There's a labor crisis. The kids aren't coming into the trades and everything else. And I truly believe that it's because there is a lack of awareness in solving some of these problems that they've all heard about. Right? Being in construction, you're not going to be taken care of. Your boss isn't going to care about you. There's a lot of this negative talk. And to see that there is a group of people coming around saying, hey, we really care about these guys. We really care about what's going on. The more we can get that out, I think the more we can solve this labor crisis to go, wait a minute, I don't have to walk into a company that's going to treat me horribly and do all of these bad things and make me feel not connected and everything else. There are groups out there supporting this. And I'd imagine that companies that are a part of this, they brag about it too, right? They bring
Of
awareness
course.
to all of this. And I think that's something that we really need to do. And then just understand, like what you said, it's not just this isn't the show Severance. I don't know if you've seen that or not, right?
Yeah, the first season.
Like you walk it, you get into the elevator, and all of a sudden you flip and you leave all your home life behind. That's not like it is. When you hire these people, you get the whole package.
Yep.
Everything, their hopes, their goals, their dreams, and all their drama and their problems and everything else, because you can't separate that. And so the more that we can bring that in and say, hey, we still have business to run. We still got to make right decisions. We still got to do right by the business and our clients. But gosh, the more we support our people, the more we create opportunities for connection, the more we're vulnerable and show that, the more that we'll just be able to open up and go, wow, this is a great place to work. And we're hitting all our numbers and we're doing everything and all the stuff that we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Josh, as we wrap up now, tell us a little bit about how we can get involved in Project Built, how we can connect with you, how we can be a part of this initiative and this movement that is coming across the trades. Like, how do we get involved and how do we get connected to you?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So if you go to getbuilt.org, which is our website for Project Built, there's a couple of spots that you can do that. One is obviously getting involved and donating, right? We need to fund this thing. So any help that people are willing to give on that level. But then we're also looking for volunteers and people that want to get involved. And both of those pages are available on the website. You can get a hold of me there as well. We talked about Construction Suicide Prevention Week being a great entry point and raising that awareness piece. But then there's the next part, which is to get in there and really start doing some work. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help any company, business owner, small, medium, large, it doesn't matter, to really start to dig in and do that work. And so I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Use me as a resource. And then if you want to get involved, if you're that 20% of people that feel called to this and want to figure out what you can do, please reach out to me and I'm happy to show you exactly what's going on and get you in the fight.
Josh, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. There's such a need for this awareness and for someone that can give these resources and these tools to all these contractors, and more in particular, the tradesmen and women that are out there combating this every single day. So thank you so much for being on the show. I thought it was a great conversation, and I cannot wait till you tell me there's 1 million people involved and there's 2 million people involved. I love it. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
buddy.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving us a platform and for talking with me today and connecting me with your listeners. I can't wait to see who I get to meet through this.
Absolutely. Ryan Englin here. Thank you so much for listening to Titans of the Trades. If you're a titan in the construction, manufacturing, or skilled trades industry and would like to be a guest on my show, please visit podcast.corematters.com. If you found value in this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot on your phone and share it with a friend or post it on social. And if you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Titans of the Trades. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and get me one step closer to solving the labor crisis facing the industry. Want to know more about how we're doing that? Go to our website or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.